Subscribe to Film Companion for your film fix. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.
Fernando, I will say that I am completely not worthy of doing this. So let me establish that completely up front, except he has to leave and he's not here for our closing ceremony. And so I have to give him the Excellence in Cinema Award right now.
Wow, that's. Wow, thank you very much. I wasn't expecting for that. I'm very honored to get this. This festival is growing and growing, and I hope it keeps growing like this and becomes a reference that is already becoming for the world for this. We don't see much Indian films in the world. I think your society is very autosufficient regarding films. You do your own films and you watch your own films. You should share your films, you know. So I hope this festival is important to share your cinema to the world. Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll leave it here so everybody sees it.
Lovely. So, Fernando, at one point in this film, in The Two Popes, I think it's Bergoglio who says that the truth is vital, but without love, it's unbearable. And I feel like that's true of your films. They are about very harsh things. They show us very harsh truths. But there's such a compassion there. There's such a sort of empathy. And I feel like there is always hope. Is that by design?
Yeah, well, this line actually is a line from Benedict.
From Benedict. He's quoting Benedict.
I wrote, yeah, Benedict doesn't believe in what he writes. That's the irony. Yeah, I try to put some hope in my films. I'm always dealing with very delicate issues that touches me very. But to be very honest, nowadays I'm not very hopeful about our future. You know, I try to be, but I have grandsons. But I think because of this climate crisis, and I think our future is going to be very difficult. So I try to bring hope, but also to inform, to see. I mean, to show parts of the world, to inform the audience about where we're going to see if we still have time to change. But I'm really pessimistic about our future. Sorry to say that.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to come back to the film you're about to make, which is climate change, right? So you are...
Yeah, the next one, yeah.
The next one is about climate change.
Yeah, it's my obsession now.
Is it?
Yeah, it became my obsession, yeah.
So do you think...
The problem is that if you read much, if you read science, you really will get really scared. Because it's... The best way not to get scared is not knowing about it. And I think I've read too much already, so...
So you don't have an option.
Yeah, I don't have an option anymore.
Fernando, when this play, The Two Popes is based on a play, and when that came to you, you said that, you know, I'm a very bad Catholic and I'm not interested in Catholic politics. When City of God, the book that it was based on, was sent to you, you said, but I don't know anything about gangsters and I'm not interested, I don't like action films. How do these stories find their way into you when your first instinct is no?
Yeah, this story, as I told you, was my interest in knowing Pope Francis better. Because, I mean, I'm not involved with his religion aspect, but I was very involved with his politics. I mean, he fights this idea of nationalism that is now, I mean, the big thing, the new wave in the world, like my country. Presidents that thinks that they can run a country and ignore the rest of the planet. Anyway, and Pope Benedict, he really sees the world as one thing, and we're a brotherhood. Doesn't matter the frontiers, you know. And I like that thought. I really don't believe in nationalism. So I think to know more, Pope Benedict was really what attracted me.
So you said that Anthony Hopkins was like a classical musician, and Jonathan Pryce was like a jazz musician. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience working with those two actors because they're very different. Their process of approaching the character is really different. Tony Hopkins, we sent him the script in September in 2017, I think. And in October, he said, okay, I'm going to start to prepare the film. He was going to shoot only in end of February. In October, he said, I'm now starting to work on the project, so please don't change a single word, which is very difficult because we keep changing the script. I mean, even on the day we're shooting, and I say, are you serious? He said, yes, please don't change a word because I will start working. And he started sending me emails about specific lines, about the concept of the film. So we've spoken about Schopenhauer, we've spoken about our world, or a view of the world. I mean, he's very profound. He knows a bit of philosophy, and he taught me a lot. But it was a long process of 4 months of preparation. And for each line, he knew how he was going to play. So there's a moment when he takes a flight on his eyebrow. He thought about this fly in December. I mean, 3 months before shooting. You look at him, and it feels very natural. He does this. But this was already planned. And I'm going to look back, and at some point, he asked me to put a gardener somewhere because he wanted to wave, so to have a break in the line and wave. But I cut the line anyway. But anyway, he prepares. That's why I say he's like a classical musician that knows the part and prepares and repeat the part and so. And Jonathan is the opposite. What he's done, he watched a lot of footage with the Pope, YouTube and everything he could find. And he tried to get the feeling of the Pope, the mood of the Pope, the mental state of the Pope, and also his body language, and he became the Pope. So no matter what line I would give him on the day, he would just throw it like the Pope, you know. He really...
Because it's already in.
Yeah, it was a different process. And so I didn't know how the two of them was going to work, because one it's all about improvising, and it's very loose, like jazz, and the other one is very classical. He knew each break, the moment he would breathe and all that. But they came along so well, and it worked.
And they got along with these kind of very different
I mean, on
processes?
the second day, they became like best friends. They would go out for dinner every night, and I think you can feel in the film, there's a connection, there's a bond, right? Yeah. And it really helped the film.
Fernando, you've been making films now for decades. Do you find that your instincts as a director are very different from when you started, or do you still respond to the same kind of things?
Yeah, I think what I improved, if we improved something when we get old, is because now I trust my intuition more than I used to do. When I was younger, I always tried to cover myself, you know. So I had an idea, I would shoot my idea, but I would also do like a different way, or I wanted to be covered. And now I really trust my instinct, you know. If I think something is not going to work, I just don't go there. And if I think something crazy or my work, I just go like the pizza in this film. This was not in the script. It was like 2-3 days before we shot. I said, well, let's put a pizza scheme, you know, and because I thought it would work. I don't know why, but I mean, now I believe to trust my intuition. We trust too much our rational side. We should listen to our irrational side. And I'm learning, I mean, getting old and learning to be more loose and respect my instinct.
Well, the pizza definitely works.
Yeah, it worked. It did, didn't it?
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I read that your dad, who was a doctor?
He's still alive.
He's a doctor.
Yeah.
He loved making short films with his friends. And he gave you your first camera when you were 14. Is that true?
Yeah, no, he had a lot of short films, very funny short films that I loved to watch when I was a kid. But actually, he didn't give me this. This is written somewhere. Huh. But my first film, I was 14 or 15. I did it with Super 8. Was all very experimental films. I loved the Canadian animator, what's his name? Now I forgot his name. It's a big Canadian who works with animation. It's, what? No. Anyway, there's this, I'll remember the name. And so I did some shorts trying to imitate him. McLaren. Yeah. I forgot his first name, but the second came. What? Norma McLaren. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. Anyway, I copied some of his films, and that's how I got into films.
But you trained to be an architect.
I'm an architect. I am an architect. Yeah. 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 Never worked with it.
Yeah,
but,
you never did. You didn't use
yeah,
the
well,
degree.
I built my house. It's a nice house.
Fernando, how has that training as an architect, if at all, has it sort of informed the way you shoot locations, especially cities?
Yeah, well, of course, in architecture, I'm very sensitive to spaces. I love spaces. So it helps to understand how to shoot, how to move actors around. But I think architecture has something to do with directing films. Architect means that tet is the head, and architect is the head. So it's the guy who's above, the head above in the construction, that comes with the vision, and then you call, technicians, engineers, and an architect needs a lot of people to build whatever he's building. And I think the director is the same thing. I come with the vision, and I depend on photographers, editors, wardrobe, production designers. I don't do those things. I just know how to interfere and to talk to them, but I really depend on them. So in some ways, the same. I bring a vision, and I need people like an architect. I think there's something similar, I guess.
You also spent years doing television, doing advertising, but you said you never fit into the advertising world because you never figured out what market share was.
Yeah, never. All these words that they use, beautiful words, I really don't. Never.
But what did those two mediums teach you about storytelling?
No, was the best school I could have because first of all they pay you very well, which is not bad. But more than that, I did like thousands of commercials. I think thousands. I'm not just really thousands. And the great thing about that is that you work with different photographers and different art directors and actors. So I worked hard for 10 years with commercial, doing like 2-3 commercials a month. So I worked with everybody in the Brazilian market, not only actors, but especially people in the technical talent areas, And so my crew, the crew with whom I shot City of God, only Cesar Chaloni, the DOP, had done 2 features before. All the rest of the crew, they had never worked on features. But I was working with them for years, and I knew them, and I knew they were very talented. So the film worked because I had this very good relationship with all of them, because commercial gave me this opportunity to work with each one of them and several times, and to see how I would make them work the best they could. Was anyways, it's a good training because you exercise. And cinema, I think, has a bit to do with if you're a pilot, a plane pilot. You need to really practice, try, and make mistakes and try different things, and so it was a good school.
So what's the most important quality for a director to have?
I think you have to like the stories, the story you're telling. I think for me that's the main thing. If I'm making something that I'm not very involved, I really disconnect. So each one has a different process, but I really need to be engaged with what I'm trying to tell. And in commercial, of course, I wasn't very involved in selling a specific car or a brand of soap. So what I would do in almost every commercial, I try to invent something to make some challenge for myself. So I could be interested in the project. Like, I don't know, it's a car commercial. I would try to make a flying camera. Now it's easy, but 2-3 decades ago it wasn't. Or try to find a crazy place to put the camera, or change the lines completely, rewrite some jokes, and I always try to find ways to. And I think my career as a commercial director went quite well. I got some awards in Cannes and all that, because I was always pushing, trying to think out of the box. And this was really to make me, interested in whatever I was doing.
So no one noticed you didn't care about the product.
No, yeah.
I was going to end and sort of open it up to the audience, but I can't resist just two more questions. One is that this climate change film that you're making, you're also very passionate about farming. So are those two sort of connected? What is leading you to make a film about climate change?
My fear. Yeah, but I'm not going to tell what the film will be, but hopefully it will be shot in September. It will be a Netflix project, but that's all I'm going to talk about. But I'm passionate about the issue because, as I said, I've been reading a lot, and the things is moving too fast, and we don't have time. We don't have more time to. It's the biggest problem with climate crisis is really time. We don't have the time to discuss anymore. Really, need to act. Anyway, but it's very annoying. People usually don't like to read or to talk about the climate crisis because it's quite scary. So my challenge in this film is to make a film that is watchable, that engages people and not annoys people. Let's see if I think it's coming out quite nice. And yesterday I was told that because I had some sequences in Bangladesh that I should shoot in India. So there's a good reason for me to come back.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. We would love that. You also, Fernando, say that you don't think of yourself as Brazilian. You think of yourself as belonging to the earth. Can you teach us all to think like that?
No, maybe because I travel too much, because I read. I'm very, as I was saying, very interested in mankind as a whole, and maybe that's why I like Pope Francis. He has the same kind of thoughts. Anyway, I really feel myself. I'm very, as I said, my roots in Brazil is very deep. I have a farm in Brazil. I plant coffee, I plant avocado and sugarcane, and so I like the country and the soil and all that. But I see myself as part of the whole globe. That's just the way.
So I don't know if you've been following the conversation about masters weighing in on the MCU. But I don't know if you guys have been following this, but of course after Scorsese, this morning Ken Loach also was of the view that this is not cinema and it's very boring. And I saw a tweet by Cameron Bailey of the Toronto Film Festival saying, I regret not asking every master we've had at the festival what he thinks of the MCU. So I don't want to go out at the Marvel Universe and the films that the Marvel Universe is making. So since I have the opportunity and I have a master, I need to ask, what do you think of those movies? And, it's a debate about what Scorsese said was this is not even cinema. What do you think of these films?
Yeah, I can't disagree with Scorsese because I don't watch them, so I don't know if they're boring. I watched it, Spider-Man like 8 years ago. I think it was the 2 or the 1, and that was it. I'm not interested yet. Just that.
Your
It
grandsons
doesn't mean it's bad. But no, I watch it. But I don't know if it's Marvel. Deadpool, the first one, and I liked it very much.
There you go.
Very good. It was very good. Yeah, amazing action sequences. Then I tried to watch Deadpool 2 in a plane, but I watched like half an hour and gave up.
Yeah. Yeah. So the grandsons don't make you go to...
No, they don't watch. My daughter doesn't let them watch. She's very radical. She's hippie, completely hippie.
You're not hopeful about our future, but are you hopeful about the future of cinema?
If we don't have a future, cinema has no future. So yeah, it's true. Forget. Yeah, unfortunately, I really think that everything is gonna go. Mona Lisa means nothing. It's gonna go. The Greek civilization gone. I think so. Sorry about that.
Okay, guys, with that, let's open it up to questions. Do we have mics? Yeah, can we start with the lady there?
First of all, heartiest congratulations on the film. What a phenomenal way to put two actors together and create that. The music was amazing. My question to you is, as a director, how do you direct your actors? Do you let them, do something of their own and then you change it to what you want? Or do you already have a vision that you explain to them before they start enacting? How do you work with actors? Because City of God was, it's a cult. And Two Popes, for me, is something that it's beautiful. So how is it that you work with actors, and what's your technique to really have that, the pulse, that emotion, that heartbeat, intact in a scene?
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand before you start working with anybody, to understand how that specific actor works, how is his process. So you don't ask him to do something that is not part of his, you have to play his game. So I'm very sensitive, and I mean, my first conversation with actors is how do you work? How do you prepare yourself? And I'm really aware of that. And of course, working with actors like this, it's not to me to say them how to do or how to play. I mean, they know exactly how to play. They're genius, right? So I tend, actually not only with them, usually what I do is I don't tell them what to do, I ask them what to do. So my direction is more asking questions, So this scene, what do you think? Do you think he's angry here, or do you think he would be lower? Do you think it's better walking, or let's sit? How do you feel? It's always, how do you feel for this? What would you do? How do you approach? And sometimes when I had a different vision, I try to convince them and not to ask them to do my way. It's always, do you think it would work if you try to raise your voice here? And that's, but always asking. I'll never ask them to do something. Do this, work that, What if you, it's always like that. Especially with those two brilliant actors. I mean, let them create. It's not me, right? Actually, I mean, not only with actors, with the whole crew, I tend to ask them more than tell them what to do,
And of
Because,
course,
I mean,
if you have two really big actors like that and they improvise, how do you cope with them improvising in a particular scene?
I always ask them to improvise. In this case, I mean, Jonathan was very happy to improvise. Tony wasn't very much, but in the beginning, he says he doesn't like improvisation, and as I was saying, he likes to prepare. But then when we start shooting, he felt free, and we had a lot of improv sequences, like the piano scene where he's playing. It's all improvised. In the script, it says that he was going to play Mozart, but on the day he said, "No, I'm going to play Smetana." And he plays himself. He's a concertist, really a serious pianist. And then actually we tried to find, after we cut the film, we tried to find the music that he was playing, the Smetana he was playing, because we need to get the rights. And we found out that there was no Smetana. He composed the music and lied to us. That was Smetana. and I called him, "Are you sure?" He said, "No, that's Smetana." I said, No, I'm sure it's Smetana. I said, "Tony, you're lying." And he was lying.
Thank you.
So,
But anyway, all that sequence, it's all a bit improvised.
I'm Moktik, and I actually have a follow-up question on that exact scene. That was probably my favorite scene in the movie, where I felt like, obviously, it's extremely political. He's trying to avoid signing that resignation letter. But for the first time in the film, you see you're also humanizing the Pope who's resigning. So I just wanted to ask you, I mean, was there a lot of improvisation? Was that a difficult scene to shoot, or?
Yeah, that's exactly what I like in that scene. You got
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted. Thank you very much. Which, I mean, they have different ideas. In the rational world, they really don't agree, and they will never agree. But then they go to music, to art, and to a more, we could say, spiritual or different level of relationship, and then they connect. From that moment on, they connect through music. I think this is a beautiful idea, and I'm glad that you got it.
Yeah, last question to you.
Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. So my question is, I understand that you spoke about your visual treatment as something which you're trying to create an intimacy and understand the two characters as not the Pope, but as men who are having a conversation about their ideologies. So for example, where the scene will also have a shot where the camera is almost peeping, it's also observational.
Which scene?
Like the scene in the garden where they're in his summer house.
I see.
Right. So there are shots where the camera seems to like be almost peeping through. It's an observational style, almost documentary. But then there are also wide shots where the camera is static. And I want to understand that, did you derive that sensibility through the larger scene, and how did you communicate that to your DOP?
Yeah, well, actually, I think he communicated to me. Yeah. No, we had an idea when we first started that every time we would picture Benedict's world would be more German. The camera would be steady, very composed framing and all that, and big framing. The actors would be very small, and Francis' world would be more handheld, more loose, less controlled, and we start shooting like this. But I think in the end of the movie, as they start talking to each other, we just lose that a bit. We start mixing. But as a principle, when we started, that was a concept that we didn't follow much. And the other thing that we wanted from the beginning, and it works in some extent, but not till the end, that because we had very good dialogues and very good actors, from the beginning, before we start, we said, let's use a lot of close-ups and let's just read. The pleasure of reading what is going in the actor's mind, you know. So there's one sequence in the garden that we use a lot of close-up, they're almost facing the camera, talking to the camera, to each other. But then in the process, we just forgot. Jazz. We went to a different direction, but it works.
It absolutely works. Fernando, thank you so much. This has been so
Thank you very much.
amazing.
Thank you very much,
you.
everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
And thank you for that. Beautiful, beautiful.